This week, the Valor Flight Crew podcast welcomes Terence Sheehy to discuss the challenges of leadership in public safety aviation.
I cringe saying this word because I think it gets a bad, wrong rap, but being able to be vulnerable with your people and just being able to say, hey, you know what, I'm not 100% sure on that. It's going to take me a minute to find that out. And that's where, to use that buzzword, that say-do gap. And that can be another leadership challenge, because every day, like a backpack, and that's where I say leading while carrying, people are dumping stuff into that backpack throughout the day over the course of the days, weeks, and months. And what is my say-do gap? That if Blake says, hey, I get a question about, whether it's follow-up for this patient, or we keep having this problem with this piece of equipment, when are you going to do something about it?
Welcome back to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, hosted by Echo and brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and Valor Plus. Leadership in public safety aviation has never been more challenging. As our industry evolves, today's leaders are being asked to do more with less, all while preparing the next generation to succeed. In this episode, we sit down with Terence Sheehy, Operations Deputy Chief for Dare County EMS, to discuss leadership beyond the title, covering mentorship, growth, and the lessons every leader can use to build stronger teams and a stronger culture. Thank you to our sponsors, Airbus, Metro Aviation, Precision Aviation Group.
Welcome to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast, produced in partnership with Echo, Every Coast Helicopter Operations. The Valor Flight Crew podcast promotes the personnel and life-saving equipment behind helicopter air ambulance services. Join hosts Mike Fideli and Blake Schreider for in-depth interviews and expert insights from air medical personnel, pilots, communication specialists, and maintenance crews who play critical roles in airborne emergency response.
Line 1 accepting.
Copy, Line 1, gotcha, accepting. You're going to be talking to Red Feather 1 on LCEMS.
I feel like you're hitting really close to home at the moment, because I look at, for myself, that biggest struggle. I look up to the other leaders that I've had in my career, whether that be, prior managers when I worked in the hospital, whether that be prior, chief flight nurses or program managers that I've worked for. Thinking back to my EMS days, to the captains and chiefs that I worked with in the EMS days, and those people that I respect, and I step into a new role and I'm like, why am I not that? And it's different circumstances.
But to the new people you are.
Hopefully someday, and I get it. We're probably our own worst critics, right? Like that's part of those pressures that we put upon ourselves. But I look at it like, these people seem to have it all together all the time. And I'm sitting over here like, what did I get myself into? I'm still excited about it. I still very much enjoy it. I'm looking forward to learning more aspects of the job. But I'm also struggling because it's been 12 plus years since I've been, on orientation, if you will, and not had an idea of what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's hard to not compare yourself to those other great leaders that you've seen in your time. And I think that's a big struggle, because it's like, I want to get there. I want to be that. But we're also a very type A impatient crowd when we talk about public safety aviation, EMS, fire, police. So having the patience and giving yourself that grace to be like, okay, you need to not compare yourself to somebody else right now. You need to take it one step at a time for yourself. That's a struggle, I think.
It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
I think there's no issue if I use those people as my role models. Maybe some growth benchmarks with things to say, hey, I did this for years. That when I was a captain, I would sometimes, Terrence Wayne was his first and middle name. I liked it because it sounded all cowboyish. I'm not wearing my cowboy hat for the podcast tonight because my way it fits with my headphones. But I would sometimes say, well, what would Terrence Wayne do in this situation? And I think there's nothing wrong with benchmarking ourselves, or looking. Here's another maybe a positive. Let me look for inspiration from these people,
Sure.
and how they might respond to this or what they would do, because words matter.
Yeah.
And that self-love or self-worth matters as well. And to say, why am I not getting this? I don't know. Maybe I got to change my verbiage with stuff to say, what am I getting? Who can help me get this? Or, well, I wonder what somebody else would do in this position. Who's that person that I look up to? Not necessarily that person that had the job for, before you, but who is that person that you look up to in the industry? And I think recognizing that you can have these conversations along the way with different industry people. I remember a recent conversation I had with one of the go-to EKG people, and I had some questions about some equipment implementation, and he was telling me a story about something that had happened 35 years ago. And I just remember saying, I never knew this. And so having those conversations with other people along the way.
Yeah, I do really like that. And I'm starting to feel like this is becoming more of a therapy session than a podcast.
I know,
for me
right?
today.
Just let
I'm
it
learning
out.
so much. I'm learning so much about this.
I'm loving it. This is great. But I also feel like it's very different in our world than you can't take leadership as that umbrella term and I think apply all of the same concepts to our industry, because I feel as though we are a very separate niche, and we kind of talked about some of that before. But we like to think of ourselves as that high acuity, high performing, high risk, low volume kind of patient populations that we deal with. And I think that being a leader in that type of industry is oftentimes presents itself with some very different challenges than maybe we would see if I was, in retail or in business or what have you. And your 24/7 operations, all the staffing that goes along with it. And so, why would you say, or what would be in your opinion, how do those challenges differ because of the type of industry that we're in, as opposed to leadership as that overarching umbrella?
Because you just answered it. It's a 24/7 operation.
Yeah,
and
but it's more to it than that, right? Like
it is, because I've got to be, I still have to be clinically competent. A statement I might sometimes use is don't confuse my credential with clinical competence, because I haven't intubated a patient in years.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be chasing, hey, what is the new video laryngoscope that we should go to?
Sure.
What are the things that we're going to do? You're a new paramedic. I'll stand behind you and talk you through this intubation. But I think what sets us different from retail, man, you baited me with this question. I hate to say it because the stakes are so much higher, right?
Mhm.
I think it's buzzword sounding. You can use this as the sound clip, because when seconds matter, leadership must be there. And so feel free to use that.
No, I think we totally need to, I think we just found our other radio person that can do like the edits and like the intro, outros.
In a world of EMS with no leadership, when the medic unit won't start and the weather is bad,
Who are you going to call?
what are you going to do? Yeah, I think it's, my wife will sometimes, talk with me about this stuff, and she'll say, well, I know your job is harder because lives matter. And I tend to, maybe it's a coping mechanism, I tend to kind of filter that out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I think what does set us aside is, if I make a poor decision, or I allow others to make a poor decision, I use the politically correct, we have unfavorable outcomes, and unfavorable outcomes look like, is this aircraft crash?
Mhm.
Unfavorable outcomes look like, did I miss this esophageal intubation? Or not necessarily did my crew, did my people, did my poor leadership, or the fact that maybe I didn't delegate, or I micromanaged, or I didn't trust my people. Trust is a two-way street in leadership, by the way, as a quick rabbit
sure.
hole. It's not just they have to trust me because I'm the leader, but I have to trust them
Right.
as well.
Love that.
But because I don't have that two-way street, does that pilot feel pressured to take that mission or take that flight? and it's a controlled flight into terrain, or they crash into an unlit tower, or God forbid, any number of those things. And so I think that's what sets us aside from retail, from educational leadership. My best friend works in the community college system, and come Friday afternoon during the summertime, they shut down at, I think, 1 or 2 o'clock and during the summertime, and until Monday morning at 8 a.m. there are not emergencies in the community college system. And his boss, used a line that he had actually used before. When people would get spun up about something, he'd say, "Hey man, it's just the community college. No patient is going to die, or people aren't going to get hurt out there doing whatever. This is an educational institution. Let's bring it down a couple of levels." And so that's what I would say, that when we talk about this, hey, am I being that good leader? Because it is a 24/7 operation. It's different. The stakes are much high. When high stakes, it's a high stakes profession, and failure means bad for somebody.
Can I be controversial for a second?
I would expect nothing but from you. This is good cop and bad cop.
Yeah, so I am not a big social media guy. I don't post anything at all. Ever.
Who's this Blake guy that I'm following on?
Listen, my wife created it for me, so
okay, it's a social media marketing campaign.
So, but in the times that I am a social media guy, when I'm like, wow, there's nothing else to do, let me doom scroll into things. So I saw this statement, I should say. I don't even want to call it a quote, but I saw this statement, and it was from some type of page that is, tries to be inspirational, but talk about like, we're doing good things for our profession, right? So the statement that was said was, "You're not as good as you think you are." And so I read that, and I was like, oh, that's awful humbling. I guess I do kind of suck. I was like, how do they know me? Did they read my chart? Like, damn.
They did.
Yeah.
So, and when we're done, I've got to talk with you about your narratives. You need to learn spelling and grammar, but
KPIs, man. But that statement, just, I don't know why. Like I read it, I absorbed it, I critiqued myself and said, yeah, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. But then, in the EMS profession, right? Aside from fire, law enforcement, whatever, like in the EMS profession, I don't know what exact numbers are, but I think we would all agree that there's a large majority of the encounters, patient calls encounters, however you want to call them. A lot of times, some of these interactions aren't as bad as they may seem, or how they are initially received, right? And then you get there, maybe it's not as bad or whatever, right? But it doesn't mean that they don't have potential, right? And so kind of understanding the role of like the EMS service, right? And like, it may be someone else's emergency. It might not be emergent to me. I learned that over the years. And so there's a part of it where, if I call the doctor because I feel sick, and like, because I have the sniffles, and I go in and like, oh, why are you here? Like, allergies, they're like, okay, cool. I went to school for 10 years and, I'm doing this, right? Obviously not the highlight of their day, but there are cases that come in that are truly critical, or the life and death, right? So acknowledging those differences, I go back to that statement and I'm like, I don't know that I 100% agree with that. Like, I'm not as good as I think I am, or you are not as good as you think you are. I don't know. I think maybe it's okay to be really good at something, and you can be good at that. And as I kind of tie that into leadership role, like, I think maybe it's okay to acknowledge those differences. I'm not always going to get it right, but you know what? I think maybe the people that are showing up and coming in and doing the good work, right? I think you are as good as you think you are. There's always room to learn. And I think there's a difference between confidence and cockiness.
There is. Huge.
But you don't hear confidence, but I truly think that, like, I was like, man, that just almost seems like more of a dig than anything. And I kind of get maybe the intent was to be that real motivator. And it's like, you're never going to be perfect, but along the way you'll achieve greatness, but like, I don't know. I think maybe we could acknowledge that, no, I think I am pretty good at some of these things. And that's not being cocky. That's being confident and acknowledging the aspects of this job. And like you said, it's not always life and death, but there are times that it is. And maybe that's where I am, or we are. I don't want to say me as I'm describing myself. I want to say like we are. No, I think we are as good as we think we are. Like, I think we do that because we do the training. We have good leadership. And I think that we have good accountability. So I kind of think that maybe we are. What's your take on that?
All right. So I got two takes on this, two hot takes. And so one of them, EMS is negatively motivated. And I think, let's talk about healthcare for 12 seconds, is negatively motivated.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Mike, has anybody ever said to you, that was a really difficult innovation. I'm really proud of how amazing that you did that. Or, hey, Blake, that was a really tough patient to get an IV on and you threw a 16, amazing job. No. And just to prove me wrong, maybe that did happen one time in your combined 1,053-year career. I'm just being dramatic. I'm a father of daughters, but maybe that has happened. But how many times has somebody said to you, Blake, why couldn't you get that IV? Why didn't you do blah, blah, blah? Hey, Mike, how come when you couldn't immediately vocalize the chords, why didn't you practice your salad technique? Or why didn't you just do a bias? Or so we're negatively motivated for all of the things. And so maybe that motivational quote is that. But so I removed the label so you have no copyright infringements or anything like this. I know how big companies out there trying to squeeze
it's a red sports
the dollar
drink.
out
Guess
of
which one?
out of the working man out here. And so we can look at this bottle. And so I jokingly refer to my best friends. I rank them. And so my fifth best friend, who's the program director at our local community college, and so his wife, who is a dean at that college, different department, she just bullied me. Let me say what it is. She bullied me into judging a science Olympiad one weekend. And it was a middle school science Olympiad. And I'm like, I don't spend time with these nerdy middle school kids. and so he bullied me. She bullied me into doing this. And so this is what I remember though, is one of those kids. And it's kind of one of those, like my dad would say, from the mouth of children, the things that come and really kind of strike us, right? And so I remember seeing this group, and they had this glass on the back of their shirt, and it said, "Is the glass half full or is it half empty?"
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
And so it's got H2O plus, I'm not a smart guy. I told you I was well educated. I'm not smart. Plus the chemical equation for the air around us. And it had, H2O plus that equation equals a full glass. You have to change your perspective.
Yep.
And so that's what I would say is do we change our perspective? In EMS, we might be negatively motivated. I think just like in the fire service, that motivation typically is a little bit more duty and honor, and we're bound to the public. And so a quote that I like to toss out, a motivational quote from the fire service, is, it doesn't matter whatever your title is if you are that company officer, everybody in your first due area is your responsibility. So every man, woman, and child, doesn't matter whether they're a resident, doesn't matter whether they're a citizen, doesn't matter any of that stuff. They are your responsibility.
Yeah.
And so are you worthy of that trust? And so that's what I would kind of toss back and to say, am I the smartest? I'm not, but I like to hang out with some smart guys. I've got some really smart friends. I jokingly refer to my network of friends as the best friends. I've got the best friend network that when I have an issue that I can reach out to. Am I the best? I don't know. I think I'm pretty good. I'm never going to be perfect, but that doesn't mean, and I keep going back to this phrase, that I'm not going to stay hungry. I'm not going to stay hungry. And no matter whatever the book is that I'm reading, the podcast that I'm listening to, when I go to a class, what is the class that I go to at a conference, or what is the conversation that I have with somebody, whether that's on the vendor floor, whether that's those connections afterwards on LinkedIn, Facebook. Hey, did I get somebody's number, and do I text them from time to time with follow-on questions? Because I think that starts to open those doors as well. But I think it's your perspective shifts things a lot, just like that perspective of having that self-love, that perspective of all of those different things.
And I think it's such a good point that you bring up, because in EMS in general, all we see are the bad things, day in and day out.
Yeah.
All we see are the bad things. And so it's so easy to focus on the bad things that I think it's hard to sometimes change our perspective, because all we're seeing is the bad in everything. And then we turn that onto ourselves, which is obviously not the right answer in all of that situations. But, to quote one of my coworkers again, I think I said it in one of the other podcasts, but the grass is greener where you water it, not where you piss on it.
Correct.
And so if you're
doing it wrong all along,
right?
Son of a gun.
The more you know, Blake. And it's all about that perspective. And if you come in with that negativity towards the job, towards your team, towards leadership, towards all of it, that's where you're going to live. That's where you're going to sit. That's where you're going to, and misery loves company, right? So people gravitate towards that particular perspective. And I think that's hard to change sometimes. And because we get, I don't know, maybe it's sometimes the downtime. Maybe it's that, things aren't quite perfect and we have time to perseverate on it a little bit. I don't know what the situation is, but
we never do that. We never bitch about it.
No, I mean, we never, none of us, absolutely.
Let me take an unpopular is what is the culture of the agency?
Sure.
And what is the culture that is allowed to invade that agency? Do I convert you to my faith? And so I'm Roman Catholic. I live in the Baptist South. My daughter is the middle one, works at a Baptist church. She's been baptized. I remind her every chance that I get she's still really Roman Catholic. But do I convert you to my faith? But by let me riddle me this, because in cultures around the globe, things like life and death are considered, dare I say, holy moments. This is a new life being welcomed into the world, or we are sending you to the eternal. Doesn't matter what you believe in, whether it's the darkness or to you're going across the river. The EMS is being called, and so how I can view this one of two ways. They only call me when things are going wrong, or I can view this and I can convert you to my faith to say they're calling because they need you. Yeah. They have a trust and a belief that in their worst moment, and their worst moment, my definition of worst, are two very different things, that you can come and help them during that time of need. During this, again, dare I say, this holy or sacred moment, you're being invited into the house, into the lives of strangers, and your actions or inactions, do you deliver death with a compassionate tone? Do you treat this person with compassion, and or are you just a salty SOB and you treat them like garbage, and damage causes damage? So do I convert you to my faith and convert you, not necessarily brainwashing, but do I convert you to this? And then as a supervisor, and that can be a field training officer, that can be, hey, I talk about one of our paramedics who retired. She had 30 years with the county. She was a flight paramedic for, I think it was 18 of those years. And when Mary Tonda would walk into the room, and I was operations deputy chief when she retired, Mary Tonda as a flight paramedic, when she would say, and she was a real country, y'all, this is not right. Whoa. Hey, what's Mary Tonda picking up on that I've missed? I viewed her as a leader. She FTO'd me when I was going through my paramedic. Yeah. And so what I would say is, when we talk about leaders, what is the culture that you allow to happen? Do you allow those negative people, or do you say, hey man, that's That's cool that you feel that way. That's not our belief here. And do you make those people to feel unwelcome? Because whether you're the pilot, whether you're the base manager, whether you're the flight nurse or the flight paramedic, doesn't matter what your role is in the organization. Do you allow that person, or do you say, hey man, that might be how they did business wherever you used to work or wherever you were assigned. That's not how we do business at MedFlight. That's not how we do business at this agency.
I would like to say that I believe that doing this job and where you work, you should be the believer and follower and adopt people into that faith, right? And because what an honor this job is. And like you said, people are calling you to their homes in the absolute worst times of their life, right? And we know the things that are going to be the mundane, right? The sniffles, those things, right? That's just going to happen. That's healthcare. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And maybe as leaders, as we grow and continue to do things, we can't forget that very principle of the honor and the privilege that we have to make that impact on our patients. And it's not just our patients, it's their family, it's the providers that maybe are in that facility that are dealing with this, like, very trying call. But I am just like, I believe that like you should be bringing, like, follow that faith, do that, and that should not be lost. And I am just very curious as new leaders are coming up and learning these things, and I myself, like, how these the traps, right? The pitfalls, the side things. And like you said, Terrence, like, did you learn about budgeting and stuff when you went to paramedic school? Like, did you learn about, like, hey, this refrigerator system and this lock has to, meet this certain like ANSI requirements? You're like, no one teaches you that in paramedic school, right? So the true foundation of what our job can be, right? Like, not every call is life and death. And I think we all know that. But for those calls that truly are life and death, and that's where I say, when I think about that statement, that just made me think, like, no, I think we are really good at those things. And I think if you adopt that faith and your leadership has that faith, like, then your culture and your organization will continue to grow. But I'm curious on the pitfalls that kind of come with those leadership positions, because we all start out because we want to do this job and help people. But, like, are we asking so much of our leaders to, like, hey, I need you to do these budgets. And then, oh, by the way, this ambulance broke down and then their battery charger isn't working. Oh, by the way, while you're on your way to that call, you're going to need to go run this horrible call with this crew and help them and relate. And then as soon as you're done with that, you got to, upload your TPS reports, I don't know, like, like, how do you balance? How do we avoid these, like, traps that come with the leadership role, but still don't forget the very basic, I don't want to call it basic, the very foundation of how and why, where we can make the impact with those truly tough calls, to, like, that privilege, that honor to be with life brought in or life leaving? Like, how do you balance that as a leader and make yourself be successful, so that way when you're successful, your team is successful?
I'm gonna pivot in a different direction, because I think it's an important thing to talk about. That is, what is the you time that you're taking? And I hear some people say this: you can't pour from an empty cup. And then my daughter's boss, who, the Baptist preacher, his greatest goal in life is to convert me. And I'm like, no, Charles, you're invited to my funeral. It will be at the Catholic Church. You can speak even, but I mean, it's going to be that Roman Catholic rite of burial.
Yeah.
And so Charles uses the statement when I have the conversation with him, even Jesus took naps. And so if I am worn out because I'm constantly doing this, I'm constantly doing that, I'm fighting the budget battle, I'm fighting, hey, we had to run this bad call because I backfilled, and then this is broken down. And if I'm overextending myself, well, then that just becomes fatigue. And in healthcare, we know fatigue. Shoot, healthcare, we know fatigue causes us to make bad decisions.
Yep.
And in aviation, we talk about fatigue to say, hey, did you take your safety net? Hey, what's your duty hours? Hey, pilot, you're about to turn into a pumpkin because you've been on duty for 13 hours and 48 minutes. And by the way, how many days have you been on? Because now it's time for your mandated rest,
Right.
Which is not dissimilar. My middle brother is a pilot for Southwest Airlines. Same deal. And, he will, when he is in town, he was in DC where my next older brother lives. And they went to dinner and I was part of the text chain. And I was like, well, thanks for keeping me in the chain for a dinner I won't be going to, make my phone make noise. But he had used the statement, hey, Ted, whatever we do, it needs to be early. I've got a 5 o'clock showtime tomorrow morning. So I need to be in bed at, whatever time. And so that's what I would say is, how do we not fall into the traps? Here's a trap: self-care and taking that self-time, that intentional time.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Is that spending time with your family? Is that, Father's Day was recently. And so with my daughters, with their own families, hey, I knew Father's Day was going to look a little bit different. And so we took that intentional time the day before Father's Day. Got a smoker a couple weeks ago. We smoked 2 racks of ribs. We threw a deer backstrap on there. We threw a quarter chicken on there, some chicken quarters. We threw down
dinner next.
Man, I'm moving to North Carolina, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I'm Texas educated with stuff, including my barbecue. So
it's like the best of all the worlds right there. My goodness.
It is the best. It is the best. But taking that intentional time to hang out with them children, to hang out with them grandchildren, to hang out with my wife. She sometimes teases me, how come you don't call me your best friend? That's because you're my wife. That's implied in that. That is a known statement of that.
Literally in the mouth.
And yeah, like that's in the title. Yeah. But if I'm working the long days that I work, getting home late at night or leaving early in the morning. And some days I do leave to go to work while she's still in bed, and I get home while she's in the shower, and she's about to go to bed. I got to take the time with her, and we've got to reconnect as husband and wife. And that just means talking. That means being able to go on vacations and to enjoy new things. Maybe that's a great meal. Maybe that's our children. For her, when she has a tough day at work, I know because she goes to one of the girls' houses and plays with that grandbaby for 3 or 5 minutes or gives them a bath. And so to go back to your question, hey, how do we not fall into those traps? I think self-care is a trap that we begin to say, I don't need this. I don't have time for this. Is it, hey, making sure that I'm eating a squared away meal? I am no bastion of health, fitness, of virtue with that stuff. But what I would say is, are we taking those intentional times, whether it's, hey, getting out for a walk, spending time with our family, getting that sweat equity in on things, and just being able to reset. So my mind is clear so that when I hit the bricks running again, I'm able to be focused. And that for me, that's a big trap right there.
And I think that's such a challenge, though, especially when you're talking about working in these high stakes 24-hour operations environments, because even when you're not on call as a leader, you're still on call. And I'm not just talking about somebody that is, a program manager or a chief flight nurse or chief medic, right? Exactly. Right. Like this is still those FTOs. This is still those base leads. This is still those people that everyone kind of looks up to within your organization, that you're still getting texts and calls and, hey, are you free? Because I need to run X, Y, or Z by you. And I think that we do a good job for our frontline staff of promoting self-care. hey, you haven't had days off in a while, you should probably take some, or schedules are grouped together so that we can maximize the days off that we have. And we try to say no more than, 4, 5, 6 shifts in a week, right? Try to limit the hours and provide that ability for them to have that positive work-life balance. But then it's like you step into the leadership side of things, and it's very hard, I think, sometimes, because you want to be there for your team or for your crews or for your partners and help them if there's a crisis that evolves. And you want to make sure that you're addressing issues in a timely fashion. And you want to make sure that those emails aren't piling up. And the list goes on, right? And so I think that's where that's probably where some of those pitfalls are coming from that you're talking about, is that it's hard to step away or turn it off or put that job aside, because even if you're not the manager on call, you're still getting those calls because people rely on you personally and know you personally. So I think that kind of leads into the next part of like, how do you set those boundaries as a leader to not just promote that for your team, but also promote that for yourself?
I go back to one word, that relationship and setting those expectations with my folks. Some of those pieces might be in my role. Somebody has to cover that on-call piece, and sometimes it's a notification, sometimes it's guidance, sometimes it is response, and where I have responded on incidents at 2:00 in the morning, woken up to a phone call, and I now just keep. Usually yesterday's uniform gets hung up on the end of the bed, and tomorrow morning it'll go into the laundry. But if I go out in the middle of the night, I'm just wearing that dirty uniform typically, and I'm telling all my secrets now. But
we won't judge you, I promise.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah, we judge, but we don't care.
We listen, and we don't judge.
yeah. But somebody has to cover that. Somebody has to cover that piece. And I think another piece of that is having that understanding. I've had to have some conversations with my family, but it's not terribly different than I missed holidays when I was on shift. I missed birthdays. I missed all different types of things. Usually I'm there now, but that sacrifice just comes in a little bit different way. And for my wife, to tell her, business for a second, that was a little bit. We got married. I'd been on the job for, I think, 15 years when we started dating, 15, 16 years. And she's coming into this public safety. What do you mean? And the kids, her daughters would call it, is Terence, is this his sleepaway night? Like it was sleepaway camp or something like that. And so having that relationship with your family, having that relationship with your people, that when they call me with something, we go back to that say-do gap. Hey man, I'm in the middle of dinner with my family. Do I need to talk about this right now, or can I call you back? I got to remember to call them back. And I might tell them, text me to remind me, and I leave it unread, so it's still on the top of my phone as that notification, as that reminder. Because sometimes they'll get my employees and they'll text me, hey, it's still important, or it's still not important, but I still need to talk with you before you go to bed. Oh yeah, it's been 5 hours. I forgot about you. My bad. But I think that's that relationship piece. And that's part of where I say that the job responsibilities may have shifted a little bit. And it is idealistic to say, hey, we're there to help people. My helping just changed from one patient at a time to the 10,500 calls for service that we had with our agency last year. My level of help now played a role in all 10,500 calls for service. We're a geography system, not a call volume system, versus maybe 300 or 400 calls that I would run as a provider.
This conversation is great. And Terence, I'm just, thank you so much for answering truthfully, honestly, no holds back, and I love it. And I hope that our listeners are really getting a lot out of it. Like Mike said, this is maybe more the therapy session,
absolutely
either for both of us or what. But I think it just highlights like these, like I've just wanted so much for this profession for so many years, as I've watched people come and go. and in and out of this world that we live in. I've seen this. I don't even know if like common theme is the right terminology, but there seems to be something that keeps us coming back, right? And we recently had somebody that retired, and they left the comment as with it's not just about the calls or the patients. It's about the people that you're working with and the person that's beside you and the partner. And they said like that was the most meaningful thing throughout this career, right? And so when I think about that, because like not downplaying or negating, the patient care and the stuff, right? Because I think there are ways how we relate to that as work, the mundane, right? Or I should say like the routine, like the things that are like, those standard calls, right? Aside from the really tough calls, there's work. But when you're like, we go through some crazy experiences and different things with each other. And that can be with your base lead. It could be with the brand new employee. We are all, regardless, like you said, the made up titles. I love that. Like we are all still human beings, and we are still seeing, hearing, smelling. Like we are all taking in all these encounters and experiences, and then we all handle those, differently, but then we still keep coming back and we still keep wanting more. And then the as you progress and you go through this career, like I said, I've seen people that come and go because they go into a leadership role and they're like, sucks, I'm out, not doing it. They go back to the road, or they're like, yo, I'm going to go work retail, like totally not for me. But these, as you have different roles, right? As you progress, whatever it is that you find happiness and where you're working right now, how do you sustain that you keep coming back, but you're still compassionate, but you're still a leader, like you're still that leader. Like I've always wanted to just be like, I've had so much help through my career that I only want to be that for other people, what I was so gracious to have throughout my career. I always had someone I could call. Someone was always able to talk me off the ledge. I think I've quit my job 150 times, probably 50 of that this week. But so how as leaders, like that's a super tough job. I just being a new leader and coming in, you have all this responsibility and you want to do the right thing for people. And whatever the title is, how do you maintain that you keep coming back? You're leading by example, but you're still compassionate, but you're still that leader, right? You still have that firmness, I guess, or, I don't know what the right word is to say, but you're.
I can be compassionate and not compromise. I might have a presentation that talks about that. Let me just be philosophical for a couple of minutes. And I genuinely believe that the place that I live and work, and whether it's vacations with my family, side hustle has taken me. I have been in, I think probably the 100 counties in the state of North Carolina. I've set foot in probably 85 of those counties. And as a non-native North Carolinian, my wife is amazed the number of places I've been in North Carolina. And so from the mountains to the coast, and we have our funny coastal accent here. I've spent a number of time in Texas. I love Texas. I love brisket. My wife tells me every chance that she gets that our grandchildren live in North Carolina. They live in Eastern North Carolina, so that's where we'll live. We will not relocate to Texas.
But we can always visit.
We can. I have seen some beautiful sunrises. A couple of weeks ago, all the politics aside, I was in DC one morning, was going to see some family, and saw the sunrise and went to the Lincoln Memorial, saw the sunrise, and it was beautiful there. But I'll tell you what, these Outer Banks sunsets and sunrises, you get to watch the sunrise over the ocean, you get to watch the sunset over the sound, and there's just something special about it. I've seen some on my son-in-law's farm, some beautiful sunrises and sunsets there. I've been some beautiful, amazing places. But I think some of my grounding is two different things that what keeps me doing it every day.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
You're going to screw up. There's no such thing as perfection in our business. You're going to make an error. Part of accountability is not just do I own it, but part of accountability is what are the changes that I set or changed so that when I'm in this situation or if this happens again, that we don't have this same result. And so that's part of that. Hey, I'm going to screw up today, but tomorrow is a new day, no matter how bad today is. And Mike and I were joking about that this earlier before we began recording that, hey man, tomorrow's a fresh day and let's hit tomorrow with the bricks and we're going to hit it running. I think the other part is the people. A quote that I sometimes throw out there. It exists in the officer program that I introduced, and I'm stoked that every instructor has kept it in their version of the presentation. It's a people business. That's my predecessor and the operations deputy chief, George K. Farah III, and where he would say, this is a people business, not just the patients that we take care of, but the people that we are with. And I can think of some times, during the holiday season, Thanksgiving is really one of my favorite things. I just love, it's not the high pressure of Christmas with gifts and decorations and all of this stuff. Thanksgiving, I'm a big dude. I love good food, and Thanksgiving is about throwing down some good food and being able to see your family. And I have a huge Irish Catholic family, and just being able to spend that time with the family. And it's a people business though. And so reminding yourself that it's the people, because I have spent nights either talking my coworkers through their issues, just being that good friend, or them talking me through issues. I remember in some of my darker times in life, that partner being there for me. And other than, after the passing of my parents, that unconditional love that I feel from my brothers, man, I got some brothers and sisters that I have worked with that I feel that same unconditional love for. And so that's what I would say is some of that driver, that, hey, you're going to have those bad days. Sun's going to rise tomorrow, and it's probably going to be a beautiful sunrise. And if it isn't, let's watch tomorrow's sunset and see if it's cloudy. Let's give it 2 or 3 days, and we're going to have guarantee a beautiful sunrise or sunset. And if you don't do it, then who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Do it for the people. In North Carolina, in EMS, we talk about Drew Hughes, their thing, and Drew Hughes, if you don't know the case, missed esophageal intubation, beautiful boy who died because of that missed esophageal intubation and passed away. And they call it the Do It for Drew campaign, talking about recognizing all of those things. Hey, you got to do it for your partners. So to take that, and pivot it into our industry, you got to do it for the people.
Yeah, and I think that that's so important. At the end of the day, it's so easy to get caught up in the craziness of daily operations. It's so easy to get caught up in, whether you have clinical issues, personnel issues, and just general operations and planning for the future. It's a lot, and it can be very overwhelming at times. But I think at the end of the day, you need to remember your why, and you need to remember for who you're doing this for, and that's for your coworkers, for your patients, for your families. And I think that's where the bottom line is, and hopefully having that reframing of your why can help keep that positive mind frame in there. And I love that you kind of brought all that up. I think it's such an important piece of the puzzle. At the end of the day, what would you say, if we had to kind of wrap things up here, your one biggest piece of advice that you could stress to new leaders, especially in our industry, that is a lesson maybe you've learned that if you had to do it all over again, you would have done it completely different? If it's one thing that you think truly makes a difference to your crews, to your patients, to your team in general, what would you say that is that someone could potentially adopt in their practice? And you already said Jesus even took a nap. So that one doesn't count anymore.
I'm writing that down. I'm going to tell my wife that.
Yeah.
Even Jesus took naps.
Every time your wife asks you to do something, you're going to say,
"Amen."
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When we're done recording, I can tell you some other things. And so I don't know. I do know, and I'm struck with a couple of different things to stick, since we're doing. When I do stuff, I talk about, hey, we're doing that good old fashioned leadership revival. We're going to lay hands on you. It doesn't matter whether it's Wednesday night, doesn't matter whether it's Saturday morning. We're laying hands on you. And so, one of the things that I would say is, sometimes we might say, hey, where am I? What's going on? What am I doing? And since you said that, I'm a pivot to give you something else in a second. But who did Jesus hang out with? Jesus hung out with the sinners. He was hanging out with the tax collector, who in his time was considered an unclean person. Jesus would hang out with Mary Magdalene. She was a lady of the night. And so Jesus was with the sinners and the people who most needed that love. And so maybe sometimes we need to be in those places that are the most amount of love. Let me take a 90-degree turn though, and where you say, hey, what would you do different? Maybe I'm a different person. I've heard other people say this. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I would do different, because the mistakes that I made, sometimes that's that school of hard knocks, right? There might be some things where I say, I don't know if I would do this again. I probably would do it because I learned a lesson, and you're going to learn a lesson the good way or the hard way. But what I would say is a quote from I think it's one of the greatest movies of all time. It's The Princess Bride. It's one of my favorite movies, because you want a romance movie, it's The Princess Bride. You want an action movie, it's The Princess Bride. You want a comedy, it's The Princess Bride. And people will say things sometimes, and they'll use this word, well, you've got to get out there and you've got to network. And I think that that word doesn't mean what people think that it means, because they'll think networking means, and let me get this vendor to take me out to dinner, or we've got the exhibit hall. I get my two free drinks. Let me go hang out with my buddies, and I'm going to network. But to me, networking means, I've mentioned this in passing during this. What's your network of best friends? And I've got a buddy who was an EMS director in an agency here in North Carolina. He's now in Arkansas, and I can do one of two things. I can cut him out of my network, or I can say, Dave probably has some interesting perspectives now that he's back in Arkansas, and where he talks about it actually reminds him of why he got into EMS. And it's, to use that Baptist term, kind of reacquired the fire for EMS instead of being in a large metro system where they're just grinding you down. And so what I would say, I wouldn't do this different. I would say, hey, what does networking mean to you? And are you using it in that correct term? Do you have that Rolodex of friends that you can call up and say, hey, I'm thinking about switching software. I'm thinking about switching hardware. I've got this vendor who was saying this to me. Or even, hey, EMS is a small world. And when we get into aviation, it's a smaller world. So I've got this flight paramedic. I've got this mechanic. I've got this pilot. I've got whatever this person is. What do you know? What do you know about this person? And I have made good references for people that maybe didn't leave on the greatest terms with our agency, but that person needed to go through a season in their life. They had made some mistakes, and that didn't make them a bad person. They just weren't going to be a fit with our organization anymore, but they were showing that they were learning from that. And so I would say, hey, what does networking look like to you? Are you actually networking? Do you have that Rolodex of friends? Because sometimes I'll call, one of my group of folks, and they'll say, well, you know who to call. I don't know why you're bothering me. That's not really what they say. I just try to make my friends sound like jerks, especially my living best friend. I've got a dead best friend and a living best friend. And so having that network of people that you know who to call to, because where I talk about it, like being a parent, hey, I can't change. I can't fix what my children are going to go through. But can I try to make sure that they don't go through it alone? Do they know, hey, I'm going to give you advice, and my advice is shaped through my lens. I'm going to argue both sides of the coin with you, and at the end of the day, I'm going to love you no matter what. And I feel that same with my network of friends, where my best friend will say, "That's stupid, and I don't know why you're doing that, but whatever." And then we move on to talk about whatever the next thing is. And so build that network, develop that network, continue to cultivate that network. And, it's fun for me because in that network, when I get together with my best friend, his kids call me uncle, and, they call my wife auntie. And, we have gone to his house for Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving, I guess. And we have gone on vacation with my best friend with some stuff. And that to me is that networking that I don't just get the benefit of John. I get Christina, I get his beautiful children with stuff. So, hey, are you networking? Are you really networking? Are you socializing?
Wow. Man, that's there's so many things that, like, when I'm just hearing you say that, one, I just from this conversation and hearing you speak, Terrence, I can just appreciate how much of a well-respected leader you are within your agency. For you to talk about, giving well wishes to people that left maybe on not good terms and just acknowledging that they're human. I mean, that's huge. I think there's so many people that would never even look at that perspective about that. And Terrence, I think having you on to have this perspective in this conversation when we talk about sustaining leadership and for the long haul, I think I've learned so much today, and I think there's so many things that I can take back at just myself, to know that I don't have to wear a different color shirt. I don't have to have a different title. And I think that goes for any of us, whether you're pilot, mechanic, lead of, the agency, whatever. Like, there's so many ways that we can make those impacts. And I think my biggest takeaway, I think, from your advice is, we're all in this together. It's a people business, and just like the patients, it's each of us. Like, we're all going to be there to make that difference. And maybe if we understand that human aspect of it, I don't know, maybe that's how we really keep that leadership sustainable and ongoing.
You've got to give people grace. You got to show them love. There's a difference between love and lust, but you got to show them love. You got to give them grace and just recognize there's no such thing as a perfect person.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we always expect perfection in ourselves. We're easy to allow that to not be the case with others, but we expect perfection in ourselves, and we need to give a little grace sometimes and recognize that everybody is just human at the end of the day. And I think if we keep that at the core of what we're doing and why we're doing it, I think that can take us a lot further, especially on the leadership side of, never forgetting where you came from.
Chase excellence.
Yeah.
If you're chasing perfection, you're never going to reach it.
Yep.
But if you chase excellence allows you to balance sustainability.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Terrence, thank you so much for joining us today. I have absolutely enjoyed this, again, therapy session very much. Just send me the bill later. It's fine.
$3.99.
Yeah. $3.99 a minute, and $20 the first minute. But no, what I would say as you close out is, to me, this is a discussion where I include you now in the best friend club. But this is a discussion, and being able to have the conversations, whether it's challenging precepts, sharing thoughts, a good leader, and I would view both of you as leaders in the field as well. Hey, good leaders learn from each other. Good leaders build each other up. They don't tear each other down. And that's part of that, spreading that good culture. So where you guys say, hey, I had a good therapy session. Hey, I learned a couple of things. I learned just as much with y'all on this episode. So I appreciate y'all taking time out of your busy lives to spend with me.
Yeah, we're grateful for you joining us. Awesome. Thank you so much, Terrence. It's been great. And I know that our guests will certainly have plenty more questions about leadership, and hopefully we'll get to see you at the ECHO conference in Philadelphia.
I hope so. if you don't sit in the audience for my presentation,
I mean, they're going to be missing out. I guarantee that for sure. But
I think so.
Yes.
I don't know who my competition is in that time slot, but what are you going to learn from Tim Phelan? That guy just has books.
Oh man. Well, it would be great to meet you in person. Hope everybody enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you again. It's been great. And once you're all caught up on the Valor Flight Crew podcast, make sure you guys head on over to the verticalhelicast.com platform where you can check out the Hangar Z podcast, Helicopter podcast, Vertical MRO podcast. Thank you again, Terence, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And also thank you to our listeners out there for your continued support of the Vertical Helicast platform and the Valor Flight Crew podcast. We'll see you next time.
Well, that's a wrap on this week's episode of the Valor Flight Crew podcast. As we close out, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Leadership isn't measured by a title, a rank, or the years you've spent in the profession. It's measured by the people you influence, the trust you build, and the example you set every day. Whether you're mentoring a new crew member, leading a shift, or guiding an entire organization, the future of public safety aviation depends on leaders who are willing to keep learning, stay humble, and invest in those around them. A special thank you to Terence Sheehy for joining us and sharing his experience and perspective. And thank you to all of you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who's helping shape the next generation of leaders. Until next time, stay safe, keep learning, and remember, great leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about helping others find theirs.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support. Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.